Hello, and welcome to a McDreamy episode of We Only Look Thin. I am Katherine Weigel, and I have lost about 150 pounds. And with me today is my McSteamy husband,
Donald Weigel. I am McSteamy indeed.
I don't know McSteamies from McDreamies to
No, I don't
McDLTs.
either. I don't know the difference, but I know that I'm on Team McSteamy.
Way to go. And how much weight have you lost?
I've lost a little over 100 pounds.
Congratulations.
And I have kept it off for about 2 years now.
That is true. And what is also true is that Donald and I have never watched an episode of Graze Anatomy.
It is true.
We love... Now, ask me about ER. Ask me about George Clooney and Juliana Margulies getting together and George Clooney's dad never taking him to a Cubs game and all that. Ask me about that. Do not ask me about Grey's Anatomy, but that's what the episode's called, so what are you going to do?
If we had an ER podcast, I would ask you about all of those things.
But
but we don't.
We don't. And ER isn't like a great name for a podcast. But like Grey's Anatomy, spelled the way we spelled it in this episode, go look at the show notes. Yeah. It's some funny stuff.
Yeah, it's good times.
It's McDreamy.
Trust us, it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. We like wordplay, which is great for a podcast.
Yeah, we've never seen an episode of Grey's Anatomy, and yet we're referencing
People
it
love
over and
Sandra
over again.
Oh, so what are you going to do?
What are you going to do, indeed? Oh, she's great on Killing Eve.
She's great on Killing... Ask us about Killing Eve.
Yeah,
How about that?
Yeah, we've watched
But that's
every episode of that show.
That's not a great name for a podcast either. So hello and welcome to this emergency episode of We Only Look Thin.
Sure. It's an emergency. It's an emergency that you listen. And you know what? It's really an emergency that you go back and listen to all of our episodes.
We really need to come up with better openers at some point. But we don't have time for that because we got podcasts to talk about.
I don't understand what you mean by better openers. I don't think it gets any better than this.
I'm not sure how I feel about the emergency thing. Scrubs was a good show.
We won a Peabody
Scrubs.
Award for our openers.
We did. Maybe can openers. I don't know. But yeah, this episode we are going to talk about being sick.
Wow.
Oh, I was expecting you to like fake cough. Do we have
He hurt. Yeah.
There we go. But yeah, we are going to talk about being sick in your weight loss journey. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
That we are not going to do a tip of the week.
Tip of the week to you. Tell everybody.
We're not going to do it. We're just going to get right into being sick.
I think everyone's favorite part of the tip of the week anyway is when we say tip of the week to you.
I think so too.
Anyway,
but there's lots of tips in here, so don't worry. You'll still get a couple of tips in there. But if you are listening, you've probably been sick in your life.
Probably.
Yeah.
If you're a human being on planet Earth and you're listening to a podcast, chances are you have gotten a cold or the flu.
You know what is really annoying? The people who have said that they never, ever get sick. Like, oh, I started snorting turmeric like 6 years ago, and I haven't gotten sick since then. It's really frustrating to hear that because it's very judgy.
One of the other frustrating things for me is the person who is clearly sick and is refusing to admit it, like, which I have encountered many, many times. Like, they'll be sniffling and coughing, and they just like, "Are you sick?" Nope, I am not sick. I am going to continue. I'm like, because you really like probably shouldn't be here getting the rest of us sick if you are. Nope, not sick.
But you also get judged if you don't show up for work. So really, there's no winning. There was a guy that I worked with way back in the day. His first day in the office, he was sitting across from my desk, and he was sick, and he had a cold. And we were in my friend's office, actually, and she had one of those stress ball squeezer things.
Yeah.
And the guy was clearly sick and coughing and sneezing, and he kept squeezing
the stress ball.
And so she started calling it her germ ball because he was the only one who ever touched it, and he was really sick and had no business just putting his hands all over all of her, office supplies. So, But that was some fun times. But we show up to work sick. We show up to our kids' activities sick. And sometimes we don't show up for ourselves, though, when we're sick, do we, Donald?
No, and that's deep. The person you should be showing up for is you.
But when we were kids, let's go in the Wayback Machine. Being home from school when you were sick meant watching The Price is Right, maybe with some Campbell's chicken noodle condensed soup.
Oh, man, yeah. And like mom would take care of me, and I'd, just snuggle under the covers or sit on that couch and...
Oh, not a care in the world.
Watch those people come on down.
Oh, my gosh.
You're the next contestant on...
You're saying that with such enthusiasm.
Yeah. I don't know.
But also, I used to pretend to be sick so that I didn't have to do a test. If you look back at the statistics, my sicknesses coincided with tests quite often.
It's funny how your daughter was sick all the time, Mrs. Rutkowski, when she had a test to do.
Yeah. And also, I remember once, did you ever do this where you would like take a thermometer and like put it next to a bulb to make it look like it was really hot?
I heard of people doing that, but I was such a goody two-shoes.
Must be
I
nice.
don't remember ever faking sick. I was in high school once, and I did ditch school and go to Philadelphia, which is about a 45-minute drive
which
away.
is weird because he lived in Michigan.
Yeah, exactly. I did that once, but I never faked sickness. I even, as an adult in the workplace, have never faked a sickness. I'm really, even when I am sick, and I call out sick, I want to sound sicker than I am. Right.
To make sure that they know that I'm sick, but I think they think I'm faking, but I'm really sick.
It's this weird paranoia about them, thinking that you're not actually sick thing that is terrible. We feel super obligated to go to work even when we're sick, or at least I do, and in my business, it's almost this thing of the sicker you are when you show up to work, the better human being that you appear to be to other people.
Right, because you're pushing through, but they don't want you to be there.
Yeah.
But they want you to be there. And if you weren't there, they'd think you were faking.
I openly yell at people to go home when they're sick. It drives me crazy.
Do you know that my grandmother...
But then I won't do it. Then I will show up, when I'm sick.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Dear listener, are you complicated? I know we are. My grandmother didn't drive, but she would have a handicap placard for when we would go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And she was, in her 90s and couldn't walk very fast, but needed the placard. But she didn't limp or anything. She was just slow. But when we would get out of cars, she would start limping. And I asked her why. And she said because she wanted people around her to think she really needed the placard.
She faked a limp. 90-year-old woman faking a limp.
We'd be going into Lord and Taylor's
her,
or Bamberger's
her disabled
or Macy's.
Placard, yeah.
But she would extra fake a limp so that people would not think she was lying about it. So being sick is complicated. I remember, too, being in middle school, and they would have ice cream socials for perfect attendance.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't want to be sick because you wanted to go to the ice cream social. I didn't ever go to the ice cream social.
Did you ever go to the
No,
ice cream
I was at home watching. I was at home watching The Price is Right, The Facts of Life.
Oh, yeah.
Every show I wanted to watch just to avoid actually taking the
Green
test.
Acres, Beverly Hillbillies.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, me
Gentle
too.
Ben.
Yeah.
Flipper.
Oh, yeah. All that stuff. All that.
I Love Lucy.
The daytime shows, which I didn't realize were repeats at that point.
I know. Did I tell you that I thought Happy Days was it was now, but it was some magical camera that filmed to the past in the 50s?
Yeah, I don't know. You were a really weird kid.
I was a latchkey
You were a gullible,
kid.
gullible child.
I was a latchkey kid, and you just come up with answers to questions that you don't have answers to. So
yeah,
it's
for
all
sure.
good.
So I guess a lot of listeners may be asking themselves, what does all of this talk of being sick have to do with weight loss and health and fitness?
That is probably something that people are thinking about.
I'm glad you all are asking that question. A lot of times we don't know when we get sick. You get a cold, you get a flu, and you're on your fitness journey. Maybe you have, I know this happened to me. Maybe you've only recently, in air quotes, gotten it together. Maybe you've just gotten on track and you come down with a cold. Or maybe you've been rock solid for 6 months and you've not gone over your calories once. You've not strayed off your plan. You've done all your exercise, and then suddenly you get sick. And it just feels like your whole health and fitness plan has been derailed.
Well, and I think the thing with that too is that for some reason, when we decide that we're the new person that we are, we think magically we're never going to get sick again.
Right.
And it's this all or nothing attitude. And when you do get sick, you throw up your hands and be like, oh, great. This is just what I blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
and you get indignant, and then you get angry at the process because you're sick. And then you maybe you shouldn't go to the gym. And I know I used to go to the gym get sick. I'd have a cold for like 3 weeks, not go to the gym.
Yeah.
And then maybe wait a year to go back to the gym.
I realize this is, anecdotal evidence, but what she just said, like, used to happen frequently. I feel like a lot of gyms, people don't wipe the machines down and stuff. And I feel like I got sick way more often when I was going to a gym all the time. And it's one of the reasons that I, choose to exercise at home, or at least not at a gym most of the time now. And, that getting sick and being, derailed, I would succumb to the all or nothing attitude. And it was like, well, if I don't exercise for a few days, if I don't stick perfectly to my diet plan for a few days, then I've blown it. It's over. I may as well just go back to, doing things the way I did before.
Well, and two, I mean, I know, like, I had an I'll push through it attitude, almost like I'll sweat out the sickness, which isn't a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like leeches in the 1600s. But, you do like, oh, I'll push through it, or I'll drink tons of coffee.
Are we sure that leeches don't work?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
But, but now even with technology, more so than...
Are you sure that's not just big pharma that wants you to think leeches don't work?
All the leeches are out of jobs, just waiting for, like...
Terrible.
Sitting on gross fallow ponds, just waiting
So disgusting.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But when we went to the gym, we didn't have smartwatches.
Yeah.
And I think we are so beholden to our smartwatches now.
Oh, yeah.
That people don't want to break their streaks.
Yeah.
I don't want to have a day when I don't hit 17,000
No, my
steps.
smartwatch is my digital overlord, and I certainly don't want to disappoint it.
Well, but there are people who post on Facebook like, oh, I've got, I've closed the circles on my Apple Watch every day this month, and now I'm sick. And I'm lying in the ER, but I want to get my steps in because I don't want to break my streak. And there's all these like external pressures that we put on ourselves to push past illness, and to, if we have people who rely on us, we can't afford to be sick.
Yeah.
So we just keep pushing, which makes us sicker. And then we feel sorry for ourselves because we don't have time to stop, or we think we don't have time to stop. And so we revenge eat because that's all that we can do. Feed cold, starve a fever. I don't know what the words are.
Yeah, and this desire happens to just have comfort, when I'm sick, and especially with a flu or something, and something a little more severe than a cold. It's this idea of I just need to feel something better than I do now. And I used to turn to food, to get that instant sort of comfort. And I was just, hurting myself more, making myself sicker. And the same thing can be said about exercise. If there are times, and most of the time when you're sick, it is better to take it easy on your exercise than try and push through, because you can just make yourself sicker and prolong the illness and prolong the time before you can get back to doing the exercise.
Well, and also I think, and this is something that I have struggled with, because in the past I would be going to the gym, doing Weight Watchers, and then I would get sick. And I would literally stop going to Weight Watchers and stop going to the gym. And I used to get sick. I am not kidding. I would have a cold for a solid month, like a solid month. And that would derail me. And then I would just get out of my rhythm, and I wouldn't go back to the gym. And then it would be, I'd gain, a pant size or something before I decided to go back to the gym again. And I would just repeat that over and over again. So I think now, older, and I mean, obviously we've lost a lot of weight, yes, but but I remember when we started this this last time joint venture or whatever, it all feels so tenuous, and it feels like you could go back to being your old self so quickly. And when you're sick, or when you start feeling that scratchy throat, or, you wake up with a headache and aches and stuff.
Yeah.
It can be scary, because you're like, oh my gosh, in the past, it's derailed me for months and months. Like, if I don't work out today, if I don't close that ring, am I the old person that I was? Am I the quitter?
Yeah.
And so it can be really scary to find a balance. And I think we struggle with this in all parts of weight loss, is like, am I being kind to myself, or am I going back to an old habit? Am I enabling a behavior, or am I showing myself grace? And I don't know that there's a single answer because it's so complicated and it's so, there's so much judgment against illness.
Yeah, for sure. And I was terrified for a very long time of straying from my diet and exercise plan even a little bit when I first started doing this. And I know we talk about all the time on this show about working in your indulgences, working in your treats, giving yourself a break from time to time from the exercise. But I was terrified that if I did that for even a day or even a meal, that I was going to go flying off the rails. But I put systems in place and I built up habits, daily habits that are just now part of my life. And I know now that I can go back to those things when life happens, because life is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think, when we start being healthy or when we've lost some weight, we think maybe suddenly we're invincible. Like, maybe you're on the motivation train, or maybe you've hit, a 20-pound weight loss or something, or you've been good, quote unquote, for a week. And then suddenly you get sick and you feel like a victim of like, wow, nothing is ever going to go my way.
Right.
Like, or worse, there's lots of different kinds of sicknesses that we have to deal with as adults. When you're a kid, you just kind of sit back and you snuggle up in a blanket. But when you're an adult, you either, if you live on your own, you don't have anyone to help you out. You don't have anyone to make, soup for you and, change the channel on the TV because remote controls don't exist yet. But, whether you are a caregiver caring for a child who is sick and that throws you off your routine because you've got a sick child at home and you're missing work and you're trying to work remotely, or you live by yourself and you're trying to, take care of yourself, or you're at work sick, other people have called out sick, and you've got to do their job because you're the fool that showed up to work that day. Like, sickness affects us even if we're not the one that's sick, or, some combination thereof. So we're hoping we're going to give you some tips and suggestions of kind of how to work through that. But I think the first step is to realize, like Donald said, sickness is going to happen.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feel judged by the person who, takes turmeric every day and hasn't gotten sick in 5 decades. Like, you're going to get sick. Someone is going to get sick, and it's okay to work through it in your own way. We are not perfect. And through this process, being open to the idea that we are going to hit stumbling blocks, we are going to not go in a perfect straight line toward health. There are going to be times when we have to pause.
Yeah.
When we have to step back and know, you know what? I'm sick. I'm not going to work out for a week, and I'm going to get back onto it.
And I think that it goes back to what I consider to be the cornerstone of being able to lose the 100 pounds and keep it off now for a couple of years, which is the realization that there is no finish line. And that there isn't a deadline either to, get it done. If you have 100 pounds to lose, there's no reward for losing it in 6 months versus taking 2 years to do it.
Right.
I mean, and in fact, I would contend, not to get off topic too far, I would contend that losing 100 pounds in 6 months is almost for sure the wrong way to do it. Whereas taking a couple of years to do it means that you have put sustainable changes into your life that are possible to maintain for the rest of your life. But getting back to my original point, the idea is that getting sick does not mean that it's over. It's not done, and your diet and exercise plan does not have to be thrown out the window. You don't have to give up all of the progress you've made, because you have literally the rest of your life to be healthy and to maintain a diet and exercise plan that is going to make you healthier and happier through the rest of your life.
Well, and I think it's like any venture that you enter, thinking that there are never going to be setbacks. It's not like, the Dodgers have won every single game they've ever played. I I don't know anything about baseball, so I'm not really sure why I'm mentioning the Dodgers. But like any success comes with setbacks.
Right.
And if we think that suddenly we're invincible because we've lost some weight or we finally have the mindset that we think we need to lose the weight, in anything we do, we have to have a backup plan. I have a new-ish car. It's like a year old.
Yeah.
I still have insurance and I still have AAA in case I get a flat tire. It's not like I've got a new car. I don't have to worry about anything for 10 years. Like,
yeah,
I need to maintain it and I need to have a spare tire and I need to have, backup in case something happens. And in this weight loss journey, in this health journey, we have to know that at some point we're probably going to get sick. And when you prepare for that, when it happens, it's not as scary because you already have things in place to support you. So there are a few things that we can do to prepare for being sick ourselves. The first step, like we just said, is to know that it's going to happen and to not set yourself up for that all or nothing mentality, because when you start beating yourself up for being sick and start berating yourself for not showing up to the HIIT class or the Zumba class, like when you start, second guessing yourself and speaking poorly to yourself, like that's not going to help you feel better.
No, be kind to yourself and realize that not only is it okay to take care of yourself when you're sick, but it's preferable to take care of yourself when you're sick. If you try and do too much and do too much too soon, you can just prolong the illness in the first place. And in terms of exercise, I found a few different websites that said exactly the same thing, and it makes sense to me. If all of your symptoms are above the neck, it's probably okay to exercise. Like if you just have a head cold, you can probably exercise. Even then, it may be preferable to, rest so that you can recover faster. But if you have body aches or chills or especially a fever, then definitely don't exercise because you will make it worse. Like raising your core body temperature is the worst thing you can do when you have a fever. And so definitely use that rule of thumb and do not exercise.
Well, I think too, and kind of what I was trying to say with the car thing was like have a backup plan. If generally you go to the gym every day or every other day, have a backup that is appropriate for, not like you have to prepare for every single thing that's ever happened in the world, but like, you know what? I'm not feeling my best. I'm going to take a 5-minute walk at lunch, maybe a 10-minute walk after work. I'm going to do a Leslie Sanson walking video at home or something like that. Have something that you can do that's maybe not your optimal workout, but something that's like, you know what, I'm going to do a gentle yoga video, yoga with Adrienne. I'm going to do a 5-minute fitness Marshall, see how I feel.
Yeah, or maybe you just do some stretching or something just to, keep yourself limber.
Right. So you can have something minimum to do that doesn't require going to a gym, getting other people sick, or, affecting the people around you. If you're home with a sick child, you could do a Walking with Leslie video.
Yeah.
You could, do one of the Blogilates home workouts. And
yeah, we've been doing these 12-minute, she's been posting recently these 12-minute fitness videos, and I've been especially doing the arms one, and it's great. I'm not sure I've ever felt stronger, and I've just been doing it for 3 weeks. It's a 12-minute workout, and I feel great.
Yeah, except for when we're doing it, that's the hard part. But
while doing it, I feel miserable, but afterwards, I feel fantastic.
But you know what I mean? You have this goal of 17,000 steps a day or 10,000 steps a day, and when you're sick and you can't hit it, you feel defeated. Don't worry about feeling that. Don't feel guilt. Say, you know what? I'm going to go for 1,500 steps today. If I'm like really sick and I can't go to work, I'm going to try to get 1,000 steps. Have some minimums in place that are kind of your like giving yourself, your future self permission to slow down is okay. It's okay if you miss your class. And if you do, I had the flu a year and a half ago or something. Walking to the kitchen was... For 2 days, I couldn't even consider it. On the third day, I remember stopping in the living room and I was like, I'm going to feel this way forever. Like, it was horrible. And then I think, Donald, you said too, like when you're super, super sick, you make these promises to yourself.
Yeah. It's sort of all like this bargaining. Like when you're in quicksand, you bargain with God. Like I'll never sin again if you just get me out of this. But I would do the same thing. Like I'll never eat an unhealthy thing again if I could just feel better. And then of course, you feel better and you're oh, well, I was just sick.
There was some meme that I saw that was like, cartoons from the 80s made me think that being trapped in quicksand was much more likely than it actually is. Like every single show is like the Bionic Woman, quicksand, Scooby-Doo, quicksand.
Oh yeah, I used to worry about how I would get out of quicksand when I got caught. Like when, it wasn't if.
Yeah, it was just a part of life. It was
a matter of when. But speaking of quicksand, how'd you like that transition? Likewise with your food and your eating, it is okay to give yourself a little bit of a break, and you don't have to do all of your normal meal prep. And, it's okay to not even 100% stay on your diet plan if it's what you need to get better from your sickness. But it's also important to strike that balance of not going crazy, not just using your sickness as an excuse to just eat chips or eat candy all day, or to, search for that comfort food, or like Catherine was talking about earlier, to do, revenge eating because you feel like, you deserve it.
Well, and I think when we're sick too, we're so vulnerable. Like what's more vulnerable than not being able to take care of yourself? Or even if you're a parent or a caregiver, if you're sick and still expected to be there for everyone else, like that can feel really lonely and really overwhelming. And
and you can definitely develop resentment that, I would take out on others by, punishing myself with food, so to speak.
Right. And so when we feel vulnerable and sad and stressed and overwhelmed, or alone and abandoned when we're sick and no one's there to take care of us, like food is our comfort. Food is always there for us.
Yeah.
And we can, in that vulnerable state, we can make very calorically promiscuous choices because it's soothing. It's easy to order the Alfredo from the Italian restaurant, or it's easy to order the, fried rice fricassee or whatever from the place. But if in advance you can kind of set up a menu for yourself of the kinds of things that are either easy to make at home, whether it's, keeping some frozen soups in the freezer. There are some great ones from Trader Joe's right now, a tomato soup and an onion soup that are delicious and low calorie. Or like I said, having a couple of takeout menus where, like, okay, this deli has a really great vegetable chicken soup that I can order a quart of and have it delivered.
Yeah.
I can order a tom yum soup from the Thai place that's a gallon, half a gallon, and it'll be good for a week and it's light.
And we always talk about having emergency frozen meals on hand, at least one or two, just that you keep around for, sometimes it is an emergency in air quotes, like you just are out of time and you need something quick. And rather than stopping at a fast food place and grabbing a, 1,500 calorie burger, you have a frozen meal on hand. But in this case, you have a frozen meal on hand that you can just pop in the microwave even when you're feeling miserable, but you know that it's relatively within your diet plan and you can, maintain a certain level of staying on it while you're sick.
Yeah. And for being parents, I think it took me time to figure this out too, but like keeping and I know it's not like the best thing in the whole world, but keeping a bottle of Gatorade in the house just in case, or Pedialyte, keeping some popsicles in the freezer for just in case.
Oh yeah.
Keeping basic over-the-counter medicine on hand, whether it's Pepto-Bismol or, cold and flu medicine, something like that, because there's not much worse than getting sick and then realizing you don't have anything in the house to manage it. And, luckily we live close to a Rite Aid. It is 550 steps from our place. So we can go over there pretty easily. But just keeping those basics in the house can help you feel like less of a victim of it. Like, there's not a tissue box in the house. I don't have any NyQuil. I don't have whatever. Like, there have been times when that has happened to us, and I feel like sometimes they go bad. Like, check the expiration dates on your stuff, because we might have it and then never use it. But being able to just have, Pepto-Bismol on hand or Dimetap or something like that has been very helpful, just to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for when that sickness comes, because it's going to happen. Don't be afraid, if you are sick, to get groceries delivered. Make things easy for yourself. Oh,
that's a really good one.
Like, going back to those, in a best case scenario, you would clean the house and buy the groceries and do all the things. Like, what are the minimums that actually need to be done? Like, if you have kids that you're managing, they probably need clothes and some food. If the house is a mess, it doesn't really matter. Get the grocery delivery service.
Yeah, be realistic, be kind to yourself, have minimums in place. And just like with any facet of your, weight loss journey, your weight loss fitness program, you have a plan, you have backup plans. It is always important to have something to fall back on. And keeping that mental attitude in place of realizing this is temporary, but life happens, and I'm going to have to do this over and over again for the rest of my life. I'm going to have to encounter these hurdles, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to get over them or get under them or get around them.
Well, and not to make it sound like Donald and I have, like a giant book with all of our backup plans noted. It's more of a so when you are sick and when you can't do what you're used to doing because you're used to getting it all done yourself, it is okay to, I don't know, order some underwear from Amazon if you can't do laundry. I actually couldn't do laundry at one point and bought some socks at Target so I didn't have to do laundry. Was it the best thing? Ask me if it was the best thing. No, it was not the best thing to do.
No.
But it got me through, because when we push ourselves to keep doing everything at the level that we usually do when we're not sick, we're just going to make ourselves sicker.
Yeah, realizing that badge of honor of pushing through and pushing yourself to the next level, even when you're miserable, realizing that is not the healthiest choice, either mentally or physically, is a big part of this.
Yeah, and think back to a time that you were sick. I mean, I'm still recovering from a cold that isn't all that bad, but thinking about a time that you were really sick, and what were you missing? Did you not have food in the house? Or, did you push yourself to go to the grocery store when you should have just stayed home? I actually, a while ago, back in, before it was Walt Place, whatever Walt Place was called before Walt Place, the Cool Kid Hangout Club.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Maybe we should think about going back to the Cool Kid Hangout Club.
Where cool kids hang out and do whatever.
Yeah.
But we actually did a self-care basket. I don't know if you even knew about this, but it was for those times when you're feeling down or overwhelmed, put a little basket together with some nice lavender scented alls. I don't know why I just said that.
It sounds like a much nicer version of your get out bag,
yeah.
The emergency suitcase that you have around.
We had the idea of setting aside a blanket and your favorite movie on DVD, which used to be a thing that people had, were DVD players.
Yeah.
A lavender face mask, or a bubble bath stuff. If you're feeling sick, having something that's a little go-to, some warm fuzzy socks or whatever.
Yeah.
Having something that's there and ready for you as your emergency kit for when you're feeling down or when you need to cozy up on the couch. It can feel luxurious to have that already there for you, instead of oh my gosh, I can't even stand up right now. I've actually done that, and it's a nice little thing to have.
No, that sounds like a great idea.
Well, and also another thing that we actually haven't really mentioned is that there are different kinds of sickness. Did you know that, Donald?
No.
I'm going to list
I've never heard of more than one kind.
But there's, so there's the cold and the flu situation. Someone else is sick. There's a 24-hour bug, whatever. But then also, and I know we've talked about this on other episodes, is there are, depression is also an illness.
Oh, yeah.
That isn't really considered a good reason to stay home. If you call your boss and say you have the stomach flu, they don't want to talk to you. They're like, okay,
right,
no more information needed. Like, get off the phone. And that's sort of a justifiable, like, I need to be at home. But if you are suffering from depression to a point where you can't go to work, or you're so overwhelmed that you just, call out sick for a day, be sure that you are getting some actual assistance, because I manage my depression and I have never gotten to the point where I've missed work because of it. But when I'm sick...
I could easily see, how somebody could, though.
Yeah. But when I am sick and I'm depressed at the same time, I start thinking some very dark thoughts about, like, this is the way that the rest of my life is going to be. Like, everything is terrible. And you can start going down sort of a dark pit. And food is very comforting when you are at home. And, we're not used to sitting still. Like, I hardly ever sit still. It's hard for me to record a podcast because we're not walking right now. But when we're sitting on the couch all day watching television, time goes really slowly, and food helps time go by more quickly.
Yeah.
And so just be very conscious of that. Like we had talked about too, as a tip of, like, still having parameters around when you eat and what you eat. Don't start day cookies. Like, I wouldn't do that on a good day. So don't do it when you're feeling sick. Still have your intermittent fasting window. Try to eat on a schedule. Don't eat after a certain time. And again, we're not talking about perfection, but just those kind of minimums that we can put in place. And if you are sick, and just going back to the depression thing, if you need a therapist to help you through a dark time, do it. We have on every corner, we've got an urgent care that we can go into for bumps and bruises and antibiotics, but it is harder to get that immediate assistance from depression. Like, if you have depression, there's not an urgent care down the street where someone can help talk you through your situation. So especially for people who live on their own, or if you're a caregiver, really anyone, if you do have mental health issues, please take care of them. And please know that it is so important to focus on your mental health as well as your physical health in all of this. And it's all tied up together. Our feelings of self-worth, our feelings of vulnerability, and it's even heightened when we are, when we have a physical ailment beyond our mental depression.
And it is okay to take care of yourself, and it is okay to take a little break from your fitness journey when you are sick and you really need to relax and recover, because if you don't get well, it makes it even harder to stay on it later.
Yeah. And just know that you're in a position now. If you've been listening to this podcast as long as we've been talking about it, like, you know that there is no finish line. You know that there's tomorrow. You know there's, when you start feeling better, that you can get back on track. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to, live up to Fitbit's expectation of you, or your Apple Watch, or your Garmin. Like,
don't let Fitbit hear you say that.
No, but you know what? I had the Duolingo app for a little while, and I wasn't using it, and Duolingo sent me an email with their, like, mascot's a bird or something. It was like, the Duolingo bird is sad because haven't checked in.
No, I deleted it. I got the same thing.
I was so angry.
I was too. I got rid of the app after I got that email.
The Duolingo bird is responsible for his own happiness. Yeah. And I am not responsible. Like, I was very angry. But, like, don't let technology boss you around. Don't let the judgment of other people, it's not like that Monty Python movie with the knight whose arms get chopped off. Like, nobody's going to get to an ice cream social for not being sick. You're not going to get promoted. Like, no one's like, you know what? You do a mediocre job, but you've never been sick. You're getting a raise.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That's not the badge that's going to win us the next thing. Like, practicing some self-care, being responsible about it, stepping back from our responsibilities, not feeling like we have to do it all, and not forcing ourselves to get sicker because we feel like we can't slow down. Like, you don't have to vacuum. You don't have to, make the beds when you're sick. There's so many things that we keep pushing through to act like life is normal. But really, like, step back. It's okay. And you'll be better served for it.
You definitely will. And you'll be better served for listening to this episode. So thank you so much. And I think that takes us to our product of the week.
Pow!
Pow! Hello, everybody. We actually have a product, and it's a new one. Catherine, I don't know how you came across it.
I'll tell you about it. I came across this on the podcast Gretchen Rubin, Gretchen Rubin Happier podcast. What's the
friend of the show? It's an app called Tiny Decisions.
There we go, Tiny Decisions. So a lot of us suffer from decision fatigue, where we have so many different options for things and we can't decide whether it's Don and I deciding what TV show to watch next, or what restaurant to go to if we ever go to a restaurant, or what to make for dinner. Tiny Decisions is this cool little app where you can put in different categories, like what to make for dinner, and it's a little spinny wheel.
Yeah, it's sort of the modern day equivalent of flipping a coin, except if the coin had like 8 sides to it.
Well, it's like Wheel of Fortune. Like you spin, basically you press a button and a little wheel spins with all of your different choices on it, and then it randomly stops on one particular choice. So let's say, for example, you were trying to decide, you work out from home and you're trying to decide what exercise to do today, and you have decision fatigue and you can't decide. So you could make a list that had squats or planks or sprints, and come up with 8 different workouts. Press a little button and that little guy will just spin and spin, and then it will stop, and then you can just do whatever it says on it.
And you can even sort of gamify, I get into a habit of eating the same foods all the time because, I like them, and because they fit into my plan, and because they're convenient. But sometimes I feel like, I just get a little bit stuck in a rut, and you can gamify that by putting all of your different, afternoon snack choices or your lunch choice or whatever on the wheel, and you spin it and you let the wheel decide for you what you're going to eat. And maybe it, mixes things up for you.
Yeah. So if you have a list of books to read, like sometimes I have so many choices that I don't do anything because I just can't decide.
Exactly.
But
I do that all the time.
You can make a list of books to read or shows to watch, workouts to do, foods to eat, or even places to go. If you are introverts like Donald and I, and you have a hard time getting out in your neighborhood, you could make a list of attractions in your very own city that you would like to check out. But instead of deciding on which one to do yourself, use a little spinny wheel.
Yeah, or maybe you have little projects to do around the house or something.
That's a good one for procrastinators.
Yeah, and you're procrastinating, and you're like, I don't know if I should start this thing or that thing. Like, you can let the wheel choose for you, and you just have to commit to doing whatever it says.
Yeah, and there's also, not to get too minute on this, there's also a way to weight the likelihood of the wheel spinning and hitting a certain item. So if you really think that running is more important than vacuuming, you can weight running more heavily so that it is more likely that the wheel will stop on running than it does.
I can imagine myself like with my fingers crossed shouting at the phone, "Come on, vacuum!
No
Come
whammy,
on, vacuum!"
no whammy.
Yeah, no running.
But anyway, it's just a fun, everyone's looking for a new way to switch things up. Things get stale. So this is a way to take out that decision fatigue, take the decision off your own plate. Like Donald said, make it fun. Why not? We only have the rest of our lives to live. So
that is the Tiny Decisions app. It is available for both Android and Apple iPhone.
And I think there's a paid version and a free version. The free version obviously has fewer choices to make. But yeah, get it, don't get it, whatever.
So you can use the app to make a choice about whether to buy the paid app and go from there. Thank you so much for listening. If you've made the tiny decision to listen to the show, we really appreciate it very much. And we would even appreciate more if you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or just even a rating would be helpful. 5 stars would be preferable, but whatever you actually feel like doing would be great. It helps us get the word out about the show. It helps people find the show. And we really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and we love all of the reviews. It's just so wonderful to get feedback from our listeners. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or
Twitter.
There we go. I always forget that. Bird.
At We Only Look Thin.
At We Only Look Thin. You can email us at weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
If you have questions, we will reply. Or if you have suggestions for us, or if you have ideas of, what have you done when you've gotten sick, tips and tricks that have helped you. And if you would like more information about joining our support group, you can go to weonlylookthin.com and click on the Join Our Support Group link.
Yeah, there's more information there, including pricing options. It's a great small community of women working on their health goals. We have people who are looking to lose a lot of weight. Some people are maintaining, and it's just a super supportive environment that we're super proud of. So you can find out more about it at weonlylookthin.com.
Stop on by the website and check it out.
Yeah. So if you're still mad that you never got to go to the ice cream social for perfect attendance in middle school, just remember that Donald and I are an inspiration.
The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.